she is. Ready? Never had that happen before. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Rapid City Area School Board regular meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and this vote and all other votes will be taken roll call because we have two of our members that are joining by Zoom. So Sheila.
Troy Carr,
Here.
Jamie Clapham. Here. Katie Urban. Here. Donna Moore.
Here.
Walt Swan. Angela Rafferty. Here. Christine Stephenson.
Here.
All right, that's all 7 of us. I'd ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve our proposed agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
crap, sorry. Troy Carr.
Aye.
Jamie Clapham.
Aye.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes. Katie Urban.
Yes.
Donna Moore.
Yes.
Walt Swan. Angela Rafferty. Christine Stephenson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Yeah, I'm technically, by Robert's rules, you asked for the negative, even though it was 7-0, so motion passes. All right, at this time, we're sharing the success. Dr. Thompson, you're up.
Sarah, would you join me at the podium, please? It is my pleasure to recognize Bobby Schaefbauer and Sarah Hornick for their efforts on National Support Public Education Day. On July 30th, Rapid City Area Schools proudly participated in National Support Public Education Day, a nationwide effort to recognize and celebrate the critical role of public education in our communities. In partnership with the Rapid City Public Schools Foundation, our team hosted a booth at Live on the Lawn at Main Street Square, where we connected with families, shared district updates, and gave away fun school-themed swag items like the one you see here. Throughout the evening, we engaged with dozens of students, families, staff, and community members who expressed their support and appreciation for public education. Visitors were encouraged to share why they love their public school, and we heard heartfelt stories about the lasting impact of dedicated teachers, staff, and programs. These moments served as powerful reminders of how deeply our schools are woven into our community. This collaborative event was not only an opportunity to promote public education, it was also a celebration of the strong partnerships that support our schools. We are especially grateful to the Rapid City Public Schools Foundation for their assistance in making the evening a success and for their ongoing efforts to enhance opportunities for students and staff throughout the district. The energy and enthusiasm from the community was inspiring, and we are proud to be a part of a district where education is a shared responsibility. Events like this one show the importance of standing together to support and strengthen our public schools for today's students and future generations. Bobby or Sarah, would you like to say anything?
I was just gonna say, one of the coolest parts for me that evening was how many educators weren't from Rapid City that wanted to wear these shirts at their district opener. So we were giving away shirts that were gonna be going other places because they were excited about the event too, which I thought that was a really cool way. And we're still getting messages all the time about how to get these shirts. So we will have opportunities to order. The ones that we have right now were via grant between our CEA, the Public School Foundation, and Rapid City Area Schools. But we are gonna have an opportunity if people want to like basically buy a shirt too, or if we can get another grant. But it was a great event. Thank you so much for doing it with me, Bobby. Mhm.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Oh, yes. You don't get out of it.
Not the fun, never wrong people. I know I want. Thank you.
All right, board, any comments about our showing success?
I
Okay.
would just say it was a great event. There was really good energy and I look forward to more events and just getting our face and our name out there in the community. But thank you so much. It was a really great event.
Okay, Mrs. Urban.
I would just echo that. I had a lot of fun and I think it's great anytime we can get out there. And I think your comments about other teachers taking those shirts back is great because I think we need support for public education in general, whether it's our district or any other one. So thank you. The swag items were awesome as well.
All right. I have no open forum sheet, so there's no response to open forum. At this time, we'll have our superintendent report, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. As you know, we have been working very hard to fill our teaching positions for the upcoming school year. Just a few weeks ago, we had thanks to a lot of hard work and those positions have been filled via voluntary transfers, alternative certificates, advanced student teacher permits, teacher of classes, long-term substitutes, and voluntary transfers. We also have 2 priority or must-fill special education positions open across the district. We have 12 other sped positions that are being filled with long-term subs, clerical support for higher caseloads, teleteachers, and virtual services. Our administrative team does have tentative plans. However, those need to be verified. We will continue to advertise both elementary and special education positions into the school year in hope that we can backfill some of those positions. We will also start advertising for open elementary intervention positions. Oh, if you have any questions, Mr. Strasser would be more than happy to answer them. Okay, okay.
Ms. Clapan.
Couple things, and I can email you this too, but one, if there is a way we could get a list of the voluntary and involuntary transfers, I as a board member, like to reach out and thank them. I know that's hard. And in the past, when we've had those, I just like to reach out and appreciate that sacrifice because I know it's really challenging. And then on the long-term side, so we talked about leaving the positions open. So let's say the position is a long-term sub right now and someone appears or an application comes in October. Would that long-term sub then be removed and the teacher would be moved in the classroom? Is that how that would work?
Yeah, we would work on a transition timeframe, trying to bring the new person in, get them acclimated, and yeah, because your long-term subs do have a limited time frame, unless we can get a waiver from the state where they can go longer.
We also have some interventionists and specialists that took classroom positions, so we would like to backfill those if possible later on.
Mrs. Urban.
I just want to acknowledge that this is possible because of the flexibility of our staff, and I'm so grateful to them. And even when it came at a personal sacrifice, so it's really encouraging that we have them all filled. I know it wasn't easy, and I think I just want to point out that we've done a lot as a district to try and recruit and make it an attractive place to work. And so I'm grateful for HR's efforts as well. I had one teacher that gave the suggestion that maybe we could have teachers out recruiting at some of these career fairs so they can sort of speak the same language as some of those kids and really be on the front lines telling them why it's a great job, that kind of thing. So I'm sure we'll brainstorm and there'll be even more efforts to recruit next year. But again, thank you to our staff for their flexibility.
Okay. Dr. Strasser.
I would like to reiterate what Ms. Urban's commenting on, because it is super valuable when your staff steps up to be open to moving, and even in some scenarios, just accepting moving and being in front of kids, which is super important. I do want to recognize our principals because they have made many sacrifices and had many tough conversations within their buildings on how to make things work, and really showed great creativity, as mentioned before, in making adjustments to put the best programming and staffing forward for our students.
Okay, anyone else? All right.
I would also like to.
Dr. Tom. So, yeah, so when it's green, you're on. When it's red, you're off. So now you're red, so you're off. Oh, okay. All right. Now you're good now.
All right. RCAS will be offering junior kindergarten again this year. That program will be available at General Beetle, South Park, Valley View, and Meadowbrook Elementary Schools. Junior kindergarten is a program for students who meet kindergarten age requirements, but whose initial kindergarten assessments show that extra support would be a good fit for them. It focuses on skills to make sure students are fully ready for kindergarten and is designed for students who are kindergarten age, but not kindergarten ready with skills and knowledge. Assessments include kindergarten screeners and professional teacher observations during those first few days of school. Their families then are offered the option to choose junior kindergarten if they wish. If they do not select junior kindergarten, then they enter traditional kindergarten. We just want to highlight that junior kindergarten is not retention. The state recognizes junior kindergarten as year 0 of their schooling. It is a great option for students who are kindergarten age, but not quite ready for kindergarten learning expectations. And I will conclude my report by highlighting that we have some exciting events coming up that board members are invited to attend. Starting tomorrow at 8 a.m., we have our new teacher welcome at Rapid City Alternative Academy. On August 18th, from 7:30 to 10, we have our staff opener and welcome at Monument Theater. And on the 19th of August, we have our first day of school. It is always fun to see the students and staff on these first days, and I hope that I can see all of you there.
Thank you very much. I'll add to the calendar that the district, our retreat is on August 11th. So we want to make sure we add that for everybody's clarity. All right, thank you for the report, board. Any questions or comments for Dr. Thompson? All right, seeing none, Mr. Sassy.
Thank you, President Carr. Give me just one moment to get my screens together. I had this figured out, I swear, before we started, and there we go. No? There we go. Okay, thank you, President Carr. As you're all aware, the facility survey has went out to the community, started landing in mailboxes last Friday and Saturday. I've been reminded as we have gone through this process that if you're living and breathing these things every single day, then it's very easy to understand how that process unfolded and ultimately how we got to where we're at. If you haven't been doing that, if you're a citizen in our community that has not necessarily been involved in that conversation, then sometimes it can be difficult to understand how we got to the point we're at. And so I think it's always worthwhile to take just a few minutes as that survey is out circulating in the community and talk a little bit about the background and how we got here post last bond. So that's really where I'm going to spend the majority of my time tonight, board. If we flash back all the way to February of 2020, of course, the district issued a bond referendum. Unfortunately, had that fail by a very slim margin, failed at about 57%. Of course, the supermajority is necessary in our state of 60%. Obviously, that went on to greatly influence what the facilities planning process looks like. I would say overall that was not a negative experience. Obviously, we wanted it to pass. We were disappointed it didn't pass. But we gained some really valuable feedback from the community around priorities, around the structure of the bond, around communication and all those things. And so that really, I feel like, is where the new story starts when it comes to the facility situation. Very shortly after that situation, as a matter of fact, about 2 weeks, the COVID-19 pandemic began in approximately March. That, of course, dramatically altered kind of everything about what was happening at that point in time in the school system, and in particular created some real challenges around facilities. And I know that sounds interesting given the situation around COVID, but I think there were several things that happened. Obviously, we had to do a rapid adaptation of learning spaces and figure out how we adapt learning spaces to ensure that we were meeting all of the specified guidelines around COVID response. Really, for us, highlighted some infrastructure limitations in a lot of our buildings where we just couldn't respond in a way that made sense. Of course, new health and safety requirements that were happening. And really, I think in a lot of ways delayed and derailed ongoing facility planning initiatives. You know, that discussion unfortunately took a back seat in terms of how we responded. However, again, I think the silver lining in that is as we tried to work through that situation, we did learn more and more about our facility situation and how facilities are impacting. I don't know why that keeps doing that. How facilities are impacted in those situations. So again, some bright spots there in terms of learning from that situation. As we were coming out of COVID, we had a change in leadership, change in boards. In the board at that point in time decided that it was time to go a different direction and time to launch a new strategic planning initiative. So in March of 23, the district started the strategic planning process. Through this process, facilities were once again brought to the forefront. A steering committee was formed that was made up of a lot of diverse stakeholders from all around the district. The committee identified facilities as a key pillar of that strategic plan, recognizing its fundamental importance to educational success. And then obviously the vision statement was developed around that pillar, which is what we have now. RCAS will ensure safe, modern, and effective learning environments by building, improving, and maintaining facilities to meet changing educational needs. So again, that really started to steer the conversation back to facilities being a major priority in the district. Then we really launched into a very extensive planning and strategic process, really from that July of 23 period after the strategic plan was presented and approved to the board through October of 2024. We engaged in a very extensive facility planning and strategic discussions, really trying to comprehensively understand our needs, our priorities as we took this information forward and determined what our next steps were going to be. So from July to September of 23, the board held facility listening sessions around the community. October to December of 23, Jade and his team really sunk into these internal facility assessments, which I'll talk more about here in a moment, to really try to document what the current conditions were, identify deficiencies, and start to establish these baseline metrics that we were going to measure the performance of our buildings around. January to March, we spent a lot of time really trying to take that information, take the strategic plan pillar around facilities, and determine how exactly are we going to measure this and what is success going to look like. And that's really where we developed this facility performance index, which you all have seen. I'll bring that up here in just a moment too, to try to objectively measure and compare what facility conditions look like across the district. From April to June of 24, spent a lot of time with the creation of the impact project plan, trying to identify what the high priority initiatives were going to be and make sure that those had significant educational benefits and that we could tie them back to our performance index to increase the performance of our facilities. And then July to October, really ongoing Board of Education discussions to continue to refine those priorities and continue to discuss the situation and what that was going to look like moving forward. I just want to dip a little bit deeper into a couple of those areas because I think they're really important to how we got where we are today. And the first is the internal facility assessments that were performed. So Jade put together a team from around the district, included buildings and grounds, obviously the principals and the educational side of that, the security aspect, and really took some time to dig into our buildings and try to understand what those conditions currently look like. And again, start to develop criteria around how we move forward. Some of those assessment components were the envelope integrity of the building, the mechanical system functionality, electrical infrastructure, technology readiness, obviously safety and security features, ADA compliance, and then educational adequacy. Those assessments were conducted again from that October through December of 23 timeframe, involved comprehensive evaluations of all the district buildings. Facility staff worked alongside educational leaders to ensure assessments considered both the technical building requirements as well as educational functionality and were those two things crossing over and making sense in terms of how we were assessing those buildings. The second aspect, again, was the development of the Facility Performance Index. So this is a tool that I think has really shown in terms of how we've used it and how we're going to continue to use it into the future to measure the performance of our buildings around this really tight base set of criteria. Really, the idea here was how do we objectively measure and compare facility conditions across all buildings in the district, especially the school buildings, again, with the criteria set out throughout the strategic planning process. So you've all seen this before, probably with the exception of Mrs. Rafferty, of course. We'll talk more about that in depth in the future. But there's a whole lot of information tied into this snippet of this performance index. And this really sets the baseline criteria and then helps us understand as we are selecting projects, as we are working through the capital outlay process, how those projects are impacting the facility performance, and are they having the intended impact? Are we getting the return on investment that we want to see? So this tool, in my opinion, has gone a very long ways in helping us better understand the situation, and really lay the path for how we move forward. Again, the Facility Performance Index provides data-driven foundation. It establishes consistent evaluation criteria, enables objective comparisons between buildings, identifies critical needs versus desirable improvements, creates a baseline for measuring progress over time, and supports transparent communication with stakeholders. So it's been a really impactful tool as we've furthered these conversations. So after we moved through those processes and started to understand that we had a lot of information on our hands and we had a really complex situation to try to deal with, given the breadth of needs and the varying needs that we had in our facilities. And we started to discuss the idea that we felt really great about the work that we had done internally. However, having a professional organization come in and assist us with master planning would provide a significant amount of benefit to the district. And so we worked through, again, another process around selecting a firm, ultimately selected Co-op Architecture, and engaged with them in October of 2024, worked through March of 25 in developing a comprehensive facility master plan. That process included, again, several community input sessions, forums, gathered community perspective on facility priorities and preferences, looked at a lot of different factors in terms of how we get community input that we feel is necessary to understanding the needs of our community. Again, comprehensive facility assessments. I think Jade and the crew here in the district did a magnificent job. However, having a professional architectural and engineering firm that is also out in those buildings, performing those assessments, and understanding what they feel the high priority needs are and the conditions of our buildings versus what we did, I think was very helpful in understanding the overall landscape of our facilities. And then synthesizing those findings, trying to bring all that information together between the information the district had on hand, the information throughout the master planning process, and really start to identify the patterns in that data, the priorities and critical needs across the district, and then ultimately prioritizing those needs based on urgency, educational impact, alignment with strategic goals, again, pulling them back and measuring them against our performance index, and ensuring that those tools were all headed the same direction. And then ultimately, that brought us to where we are post that plan being presented to the community in March. We've had a lot of conversation about how do we move forward, where do we go from here? And although we felt like there had been a significant amount of community input up to that point, there was a lot of discussion around the idea that we felt like we needed another opportunity for community input and to understand how the community was feeling, particularly about those master plan results and priorities that were laid out. And so in July of 25, of course, the district released a comprehensive community survey to gather input on facility master plan and gauge support for potential funding initiatives. There were several objectives as we discussed this that we really wanted to prioritize. The first was the alignment of the master plan priorities with the community input, and are those priorities resonating with the community in a way that is going to drive support and is going to match up with what we were hearing throughout this last 5 years in terms of feedback from the community. Of course, identification of resonating projects and focus areas. What projects in focus areas in particular does the community support and think are very important? we wanted to use it as a gauge of support for a potential bond referendum. Of course, I think we've been open and transparent about the idea that we have a significant amount of needs in terms of what our facility conditions look like. And the timeline with a bond dramatically reduces the improvement of our facilities versus the timeline without a bond. And so this tool would be used as a gauge of support for a potential referendum. And then, of course, a collection of demographic insights. So understanding what parts of our community are engaged, what parts of our community are responding to this survey, what age range is, where is support for specific projects and focus areas coming from. And so really valuable demographic insights that we can gather from this survey. So those results, of course, will provide critical guidance for the board as they consider next steps, including the potential for a future bond referendum. I just included there at the bottom, I think a few really important things in terms of this discussion. Again, this has really been 5+ years of planning at this point to get back to the point that we are with that process spanning from 2020 to 2025. I think it's important for the community to understand at this point, given some of the feedback that we had in the last bond campaign, that our facilities have now gone through multiple assessment processes, both from an internal perspective and from an external perspective. And we have a very detailed evaluation at this point of all of our buildings and the grounds and the conditions, and ultimately really understand our facility picture quite thoroughly at this point. And then lastly, that there has been significant community feedback. There's been listening sessions. There's been multiple surveys. I also should have mentioned that as part of the master planning process, there was a survey released by Co-op as well that got a good response in terms of priorities and feedback and all those things. Of course, the community forums that were held throughout the process did take into account a significant amount of community feedback. And we've done our best throughout this process to take that feedback and incorporate it in a meaningful way into this information and help set the table as we move forward. So that was a really fast 3,000-foot view of the last 5 years and some of the changes in our facility situation and how we got here. But again, I think it's always worth it to take a step back and revisit and think about how we got here, especially as this survey continues to move around the community and folks are responding to it. We want all the feedback we can get. The more, the better. We want to understand. We want to be in alignment with the community. We want to be transparent about where we're headed as we move forward. So, President Carr, happy to answer any questions. That was my main focus area tonight, and I'll rest there.
All right. Board members, any questions, comments for Mr. Sassy? Mrs. Rafferty?
I received my survey yesterday and my dad received his. He's 80 years old.
Oh, good.
And the survey was put together really well. It wasn't overwhelming. I really liked the chart where the committee broke it down. If you have a house that's worth 300,000, it broke it down how much you'll be paying a year.
Yeah.
And actually, that chart is really, it was put together really well. And it was simple. And then when my father looked at that, he was like, oh, well, I can afford that, you know? So yeah, I thought it was put together really well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate those comments. I think the facilities committee did a really nice job in that discussion and reviewing that material. I think School Perceptions, the company, did a great job putting it together. And I think you make such a great point that it's really impactful to actually see the breakdown and to see the numbers and understand that I think there are, of course, narratives that get built around that information sometimes that maybe are not fully accurate. So being able to see and put yourself in that situation and go, this is the impact to me is powerful. And that was part of the process as well. So thank you for the comments.
Mrs. Clapham?
Just mainly for public and information. So let's say you're child spills milk on your survey, or let's say like what are all the ways the community can access this survey? Because I really, really want to make sure that everybody knows if you don't have a paper one, that there's other ways
Yeah.
to access.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. So we have additional, well, we don't have the additional paper copies yet. We're hoping that we'll have those by tomorrow. We do have additional survey codes. Bobby has managed those. Thank you very much, Bobby. I know that's a lot. And as requests have come in for either additional surveys. So for example, we've gotten a lot of questions around, I took one, but my wife would also like to take one. Can we get an additional survey? We've been able to issue those survey codes so that people can take additional. I know Bobby has fielded a lot of calls around, hey, I haven't got my survey yet. Can you send me one? And so again, we want to encourage that. We're happy to do that. We will have paper copies, but ultimately, I hate to throw Bobby under the bus, but Bobby has done a great job managing that. They can call Bobby and get an additional survey code or request a paper survey as well. So great thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Stephenson.
Thanks for this presentation, Coy. I think that I've said this in the past and I want to repeat it. I think sometimes we think that if we say something at a board meeting, we've said it. You know, if the board says this at a meeting, if the board does something at a meeting, then it's done and everybody knows about it. And I like this presentation. And respectfully, I don't think that the board needs to see it too, but I think the community needs to see this. You and I know we have done all this work, but we hear from people, you know, we just heard from community leaders saying there hasn't been any planning and nobody's doing an assessment and they don't know where we are on this. And I don't think that's a problem of we didn't do the right things. I think it's a problem of we haven't been getting the word out. We just continue to make the mistake that if we say it at a board meeting and present it at a board meeting, then the community knows about it. But they don't. We operate in a bubble here. So I am wondering, and I read the Rapid City Journal. I don't get all of the local news. I think this needs to be a part of a survey story that goes in local media. And I don't know if they've done that, but I'm really hopeful that not just that local media would do a story about the survey, but that they would do a story that talks about the last 5 years and the work that's been done. I know it because I pay close attention. I think there's a handful of people in this town who do pay close attention, but we've heard from people who would be very supportive of the bond who haven't yet heard of all the work that's been done over the last 5 years. So I guess my comment is, I hope we can get the word out about this.
All right, thank you. Mr. Swan.
Thank you, President Carr. Great presentation, Coy.
Thank you, sir.
I really like that.
Thank you.
One thing that I would like to just ask, is there what defines significant? Is that 5,000 responses? Is that 4,000? Is there a number associated with that?
Yeah, great question, Mr. Swan. I think that's really important. The company had estimated that we would see somewhere between 15 and 20% response rate, which they sent out 45,000 surveys. So hopefully landing somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,500 to 7,000 survey responses. Of course, they had examples in which they had cities that well exceeded that number, and they had examples where cities had come in significantly under that number too. So I think it's going to be a good gauge of the engagement of our community and seeing what the response rate looks like. Obviously, again, we're hoping to get as many responses as we possibly can and get the best idea of the community's feelings towards this plan and how we move forward. But again, hoping somewhere in that 15 to 20% range.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important, again, to reiterate, we want to hear from you. This is why we thought about the survey, printed the survey, spent the finances on the
Right,
survey.
right.
This is how we will know, community, what you want.
Right.
And unless you tell us, we want no. So I'm just another, I mean, you've heard it different ways today, that we're pleased, when you get the survey, please fill it out. There is a due date,
Yes, sir,
20th.
August 20.
Yep.
The company will continue to take survey responses after that date if they come in. But that's really the date that they set so that we could have the results compiled and of course, carry the conversation forward.
Okay. And again, with that, the board obviously will get those results, and our decisions will be based on what you say.
Right.
And so that's how important
Yeah.
your involvement, every vote count, every ballot counts,
Yeah.
every survey. I'm
Survey,
still,
yeah.
yes, weeks. But every survey counts, and I can't stress enough how important it is. If you don't want to, is it possible if it comes to a household and they may not want to fill it out, can they give it to somebody to fill out instead of throwing it away?
They certainly could. Each survey has a unique code, and so that's how the company understands, and ensures
Okay.
that there is, not people just going in and
Yeah.
spamming the survey over and over. So they could certainly give it out. It would all depend on
Okay.
the access code. There's just one access code per survey, but again, we have additional, access codes. We'll have additional paper surveys, so, if folks haven't got one, want another one, can certainly call in and request.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, board members, anybody else before we move on? All right, at this time, we will have a presentation from our safety manager, Mr. Sargent. Good evening.
So, once the school year ended, my job really kind of picked up. And, we started immediately into the training program of our security staff, putting together a training program that is going to be done on early release Fridays for our security staff for our high schools. So every early release Friday, we have 16 different topics we're going to be going over for training. Some of them, they are going to be doing the training themselves. For example, de-escalation, Rich Holt does a program from Stevens, and it's outstanding. I've sat through it. I've sat through the training program, sorry everyone, and he does an outstanding job. But we're going to be jumping right into training immediately. Other things that have been going on throughout this summer, based on some things that have happened throughout the school year, last year, is an outdoor alert notification system. It is a program through Access, which is our current company for our cameras. And it is a strobe speaker system that hooks up to our cameras and is hooked up to, and is connected to our panic buttons. So if we hit the button, the outdoor alerts, the lighting system goes off, and we are deep into this, ready to get our final bid just to see if this is going to work. But what it does is when people are coming into our building and our building is on secure status or lockdown, they can see this from a distance, they can hear the audio, and they can leave the facility because that area is not safe. This is what happened last year at Stevens High School during our lockdowns. We had kids coming back from lunch. We didn't have people outside. This is a way to avert that problem. You should have one question. President Carr, you're looking at me, and we have the funding through our Safe Schools grant, where it does not cost the school district anything. That falls under the grant and items that we are, that is accepted to be purchased. We are also putting together we have put together a pilot program for our weapon detection systems for our activities programs. And that will be going into play this school year as well. Then we've been working with Johnson Controls Incorporated on a visitor management system for when people come in to visit our schools. They actually sign in on an iPad, scan their ID, a check is done. They get a sticker type tag that goes on their clothing with their picture. And now we have a running log of who is in our building today. This has been used in other school districts in the state, and they absolutely love it. And it helps our office staff do other things when visitors are starting to come in on a regular basis. Helps them quite a bit.
Did I hear you say it does a check?
Yes.
What is the check? What are they? Checking?
I'm sorry, I did not go into detail on that. It is a sex offender check.
Okay.
And then lastly, we have been working with local law enforcement and on alert and changing from alert, or I'm sorry, from Alice to alert. Now, in alert, there is a subsection called craze. You guys should have this document. If you don't, I have extra. This is the civilian model to active shooter events. This is a program being taught throughout the country that was developed through Texas A&M. It is federally funded. It costs the district nothing. And it works for schools, churches, hospitals. This is a very, very good program, and it is based on the avoid, deny, defend strategy. Currently, our local first responders, the police department, the sheriff's office, the fire department, and 911 dispatch are going through trainings on this as we speak. They are changing their response to active shooter events to the ALERT program. And ALERT stands for Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. One of the beautiful things about this program is the state of South Dakota's security manager, Brett Garland, is a certified instructor. Since he brought this to my attention, and I also was able to go to some of the training that our local law enforcement went through, I went through the training, so I am now a certified instructor. I have it scheduled as part of our training program for our security staff for them to go through it as well. All training is free. This hits all the methodologies of responding to an active shooter event. I was an Alice instructor back in my time as law enforcement, and now that I'm a craze instructor, although Alice was so necessary at the time because we really didn't have a good program, and I'm going to give a compliment to one of the board members because I know she was very, very instrumental in bringing Alice. Katie, thank you for doing that back in your time when you were here. But having done both, I am leaning towards Craze Alert because it works with the law enforcement response. I have worked with and visited with a lot of my SROs, a lot of the SROs and their supervisors all the way up to just a few hours ago. And as it stands right now, there's a lot of us who are still or I'm sorry, who are in agreement that this change is probably time.
Okay, was that, I guess we're waiting for the big finish.
It's of my opinion that it is time to change from Alice to Alert.
All right, board members, Mrs. Clapham.
One comment, I really appreciate, you talked about, the external alerting for the students. But I wanted to add being grateful for, I know a lot of our mobile staff has commented that they've gotten to a building, didn't know it was in lockdown, so here they are coming up with their bag and don't know, so I think this is gonna be huge for them. I heard that several times from them, that that's really hard when you're working in 5 buildings, you're not checking your email every, so I'm really appreciative of that, so not only for our students, but also for our mobile staff, which we have quite a few of.
This was I've been searching this since probably October of 24, when we had all that stuff go on at Stevens. Cause we had to put our security staff out by the doorways to either get kids in or get them out of there. There's a better way to do it, and we finally found it in Johnson Controls through Access Communication, which is our company. They've explained everything in detail to me on how this program works. And one of the things that is really, really exciting about this for me is we can do canned phrases. And so they showed me the canned phrases during one of the tests. And I said, can we record our own voices? And they go, absolutely. So for example, if we're at Black Hawk Elementary, it doesn't make sense to have my voice. It makes sense to have Principal Whitney's voice, in a voice that is familiar with the children and the staff. So I'm really excited about this. I've gotten a chance to play with it, and we have another demo next week on this.
And then my question, so in theory, if there's a switch to alert and security will be trained, what's the protocol in the transition? Because if everyone's trained on Alice and it's gonna take a while, heaven forbid, obviously you can never predict when these things happen, but is there like this cutoff date that we are in Alice until this and then we switch to this, or how does that work for cause even, our kids that have been trained on Alice for 6, 7, 8 years, they know that. So just what does that transition look like?
So if this is approved tonight, our plan is that we would train all staff on August 18th when we have them together at Monument. So we could start the school year under the new program. That would avoid us having to pay for an entire year of Alice for only a few weeks or few months.
I also have Brett Garland ready to go if this is approved. He and I will do the training. He's done, as a matter of fact, he is East River right now doing all kinds of alert trainings for schools as we speak. So he has done probably 30 to 40 different classes. I will be able to piggyback off him to get up to speed on training. So that way we can continue our own training in-house, which is to me really, really important.
Ms. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent. And I am really excited about the outdoor alert system as well, because that has been a constant complaint for a number of years. So thank you for that. Couple of things. I am not necessarily opposed to a change. I'm concerned that the Alice program has a pretty nice component for kids. And from what I've learned about Craze is that it's more of an adult or secondary school program. And given the amount of time and the investment that our district has put into Alice, I'm concerned that a switch like that without a little bit more time could be challenging for our families. The other thing, I have kind of heard rumblings that the state may support a different program. I think it's called SRP maybe? Yeah, SRP model from the I Love You Guys Foundation.
They are supporting that for reunification plans, but for active shooter events, I actually had a conversation with Mr. Garland just a few hours ago. They are going to be sticking with Alice. And if you look at the two programs, the I Love You and Alert, I think I just misspoke. I think I said they're going to stick with Alice. I meant Alert. I apologize for that. But if you look at the SRP model of I Love You Guys Foundation and Alert, it's extremely similar. And these programs match up really well. To include, there's another program that we're looking at for behavior health called CSTAG, which is also tied into Alert. There's a lot more than just the actual response to active shooter or active criminal events. There's a lot more to it. And the beautiful thing about Alert is we can tailor it somewhat to our needs. And exactly what you said was the elementary schools were my concern, because this does seem like an adult style program or a middle school, high school. We can tailor it when we start working with our children to our needs and how we see best to work with our kids. We're not bound by guidelines from Navigate 360 and having to follow their rules. We get to create our own program, so to speak, or adjust the program to fit our needs.
Okay, can I just follow up real quick?
Oh, sure. You're
Okay,
on till you're done.
okay.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
you've asked me two questions. I answered one. I don't remember the first, and I apologize.
I don't know if I remember the first. Let me just look at my notes because I had a few other questions. When I talked to local law enforcement today, they kind of talked about the fact that Alert, so the law enforcement piece, could work alongside Alice or Grace.
It could work for both, yes.
And other than the cost of Alice, I'm just wondering if there's really massive benefits to Craze, other than it being free. Because as I look around in our own state, we aren't seeing much deviation from Alice. Nationwide, it's still the gold standard. And so I'm just struggling a little bit with, paying $12,000 a year for Alice to me is worth it, if it's consistent and that's what our families know. What are some major benefits, I guess, that you see between Craze and Alice?
So Alice really pushes counter and evade. That has been one of their trademarks. And we're seeing that that is not the correct way to do things. The safest way in an active shooter event is to be behind a locked door. We're going to get into a little bit of philosophy on this. And an active shooter event is not based on going after a targeted approach. It is based on carnage and how much carnage can be done within the 6-minute window. So when we start to look at previous active shooter events, one person has been shot behind a locked door. And that was in Virginia Tech, and that was an individual barricading at the same time he was shot through the door. But the shooter did not get into that room. Stevens High School worked on a grant. We were able to get it, and we've got all internal locking mechanisms on that door. There are still some of our schools that have external locking mechanisms on their door, and we ask you to keep your door locked. And that is becoming the biggest wave. At the NASRO conference that I just went to, the National Association of School Resource Officers, they pound that into your head from the time you get there till the time you're done. Lock your door. Internal locking doors are the best key. Then Alert had a program where they talked about what they were doing. And when we're in a crisis and we are not positive where our perpetrator, our suspect is, and we think it's time to evacuate, what happens when we run into the suspect down the hallway? We have, at our two high schools, we have two SROs, our law enforcement guys. At our middle schools, we have one, and then we have floaters for some of our elementary school. In Rapid Valley, in Blackhawk, in Rapid City, our response time is within 3 minutes. That's according to local law enforcement. They can be someplace within 3 minutes. I'm not telling anyone what to do, but what I am saying is if we are going to evacuate, we have to be very, very certain that our path to freedom or safety is clear. So alert craze works on the avoid, which is locking your door. I'm sorry, leaving if you can, deny, locking your door, and defend as a last ditch effort when everything else is falling apart. So what they don't bring up is counter and evade, because we are seeing things where it's safer for our students and our children in these type of situations to lock down and wait for law enforcement to hurry up and get there and handle what they need to handle.
So it seems like their defend is kind of Alice's counter, but I would say, I mean, I always felt like in the Alice training that the first step was you barricade and I kind of think that is the message that they send. And I know like the Federal Department of Homeland Security, they haven't endorsed a single program. They just say you need options-based threat assessments. Or
Homeland Security, Scott Davis is our local protective agent here, and they are running with Run, Hide, Fight. That is the program that the Department of Homeland Security is currently using. He is one of our partners that we work with for vulnerability assessments for our schools. And they are running with Run, Hide, Fight, which is avoid, deny, defend. Just avoid, deny, defend, different terminology. I don't want to take away from Alice and all the time I put in and everyone else has put in. I just think with the way we're starting to see things in this, the way evolve maybe is the best way. This is a program that in my opinion works very, very well for our schools because we can tailor it to our needs.
And this is my last comment and I'll be quiet. I have no problem with changing. I'm not like married to Alice per se. I just am trying to figure out what the big benefit is. And I'm not sure I'm totally sold that there is one, particularly when our community understands Alice like they do and they're pretty well trained on it. So those would be my comments, but I appreciate the depth. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Right.
I didn't want you to get the impression that we were purchasing it for 22 schools.
Thank you. Mrs. Stephenson.
Before my question, Dr. Thompson, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear it.
Because I can't figure out my mic, I'm sorry. I was just clarifying that the external notification system and visitor identification system that Mr. Sargent talked about will just be piloted at the high school at this point. We're not purchasing them for all schools until we know how well it works.
Oh, I appreciate that clarification. I have questions about the weapons detection system, but I want to stick on with Alice. I wouldn't pretend to know much about school defense, and I trust the experts. I struggle with this. I think I struggle mostly procedurally with this, that when Alice was put in place, I'm pretty sure I was on the board, and I'm pretty sure it was kind of like we learned a lot about it. And I don't think it was implemented in the district overnight. I think there were pretty extensive trainings as it was implemented. I'm just concerned. This is the first we've heard about it on this agenda, and we have to vote on it tonight. And it's a big change for the district a couple weeks before school starts. My question is, can we do these things concurrently? Can we stick with Alice this year and implement alert over the course of a year? To me, that makes a lot more sense. The other comment I have is because I'm not an expert, I have to rely on the internet. And it really does sound like Alice is for civilians. Alice is what schools use. Alice is the language that my daughter speaks. When I brought this up with her, she was like, she knew every step of Alice. Maybe it's not the right steps, but she feels confident and comfortable in it. And I struggle with overturning that just all of a sudden when it's what our staff and our students know, when it's designed for civilians, and when this is the first we've heard of it, of changing to alert.
So more of a systemic or systematic implementation of alert is what you're asking. Would that be correct, Ms. Stephenson?
Yes, I think I don't want to abandon Alice right now with 2 weeks of school left with no word going to families or staff before now.
Very good.
So those are my comments on that. I have a question about the weapons detection. I think I remember last year when we got the weapons detection systems, we talked about just doing them at activities. And at the time it seemed like it was like, but that isn't appropriate or is not a good idea. Can you tell me a little bit more about the weapons detection, the use of that, and why we need it at activities, and what activities it's going to be at?
So this was all started before my position was created, that the grant that was written by the Rapid City Police Department in conjunction with the Rapid City School District, one of the things that they brought up was the purchase and implementation of a weapon detection system for our school districts. So we then, it took research, and I worked with Coy quite a bit on, and I learned a lot about the business world on how to do this legally. And we finally got a company that basically checked all of our boxes, and we purchased 10 sets of weapon detection systems for our high schools and some of our middle schools. When we got into it a little bit deeper, we realized that our current security staff just couldn't manage their current responsibilities plus running the weapon detection systems. And we did a study session on this, and that's what one of the things that we discussed was let's wait a little bit, let's look at other ways to implement it for now. And so throughout this summer, I've been working with some of our security staff that are working full-time in utilizing this as a test pattern to see how we're going to pilot this during the school year and truly how many people we're going to need to operate these pieces of equipment. And controlled events are probably the best way to do this. When we all sat down, and I mean, we tried everything and we came up with ideas, and then we defeated those ideas, and then we came up with new ideas, and then we defeated. I mean, we constantly worked back and forth, literally trying to defeat our ideas on how to implement them. And then when we came to our sporting events and our activities, this is one of the things that we came up with. This is a good way to do a pilot program on how this would actually work, kind of like the very, very beginning after 9/11 with TSA and everyone running through all the security screenings. So that's one of the things we're working at. And it's still probably a month out, but we're getting closer and closer to being able to implement them in a test pattern or a pilot program. I hope I answered your question, Ms. Stephenson.
Oh yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I know that we had the equipment. We didn't quite know if it was feasible, so that makes a lot of sense that you would do kind of trial runs. Is there a cost associated with having these at activities this year?
It is staffing, just our current staffing.
So we'll up the staff at those activities.
we will have to up our security staff at our activities. Yes. So that's by 2, possibly 3 people per event.
Okay. No, that's not insignificant.
So it's probably 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5 hours on a big event. It just depends. I know some of our basketball games start very, very early, right after school, and go till 9, 10 o'clock. So just to give you kind of a little idea of what a time frame might be.
Okay. I have to go back to the Alice. I had one other question because you said that alert is about locking doors, which makes good sense. I like that explanation. Do you have an idea? Do all of our classrooms in the district lock from inside?
Not all of them. We're working on that.
Do you have an idea percentage wise? I mean, ballpark. Is it half of the school classrooms?
I'd say 30%.
So that also makes me hesitant to bring on a system that the methodology is locking the classroom door when only 30% can lock from the inside, 30%-ish.
So what we have done from a security standpoint, myself, and believe it or not, Jade from facilities, he is quite the human being. We are working with, when we're in our buildings, we are telling everyone, keep your door locked. Keep your door locked. Then all you have to do is pull it shut. So they're locking from the outside. Some have key on the inside, and I bet you that's 15 to 20%. So when we get down to brass tacks on an actual number, it would be in the 50% category based on the doors that do lock from the inside and the doors that have key tumblers on the inside. And then we have some that have a lever or a switch on the side. And then, of course, we have some that are just key locks up from the outside. And we're asking teachers to keep their doors locked at all times.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Clapham.
I guess maybe kind of throw in another option, kind of, so Ms. Stephenson talked about, could we like the slower route? The other thing I wrote down was thinking, and just, I guess, to probably both of you, administration and you, would it be an option if another option? Theoretically, we say we trial alert, and then like we could go back to Alice in a year if we said, okay, this didn't work as well as we thought, or like, does that make any sense at all? Or would that be a terrible idea? And my feelings will not be hurt by any response.
Well, I am not going to tell you it's a terrible idea, Madam Vice President.
You're the expert, not.
If we were to do something such as that, my opinion would be to stay with Alice. Having gone through both training programs, I am more of an alert fan. And again, it's a philosophical reason. Someday I can explain why, but if we are concerned at the time frame and implementation, then by all means, we have a system that is not terribly broken. Let's keep it and then start working for next school year and put that in. If I ruled the world, I would say we would do alert, but I am so willing to work with everyone on this and try to figure this out the best way we can, because ultimately it's not for us. It's for our kiddos.
That's very correct explanation. Thank you.
Mrs. Rafferty.
I would have to say, as a former teacher, as far as the doors lock, I know in my building, the door is locked on the outside. And the teachers are highly trained in Alice, and so are the kids. And I think it's important to stick with consistency when we're at the elementary level. If we're going to do a program, we need to stick with it and do it well. Because when you do go into a lockdown, you have to do it quickly. Even if you have, at the primary grades especially, you have to know what you're doing and you have to practice it with the little kids. And I would just say we have to be consistent, whatever we decide to do. And I would like to see like a video on Alert, so I know a little bit more about it.
Absolutely. Here's the beautiful thing, is Alert works with our current system, our secure your buildings and our lockdown systems already. It's changing some of the nomenclature, some of the terminology, and some of the thought process behind other forms of active shooter programs. This is a program that our local law enforcement felt very, very strongly about going to. And then when I went through the craze training myself, I'm like, I can understand why this makes sense. And it's something that we can do kind of cohesively together. Although Alert and Alice can be worked together, Alert and Craze can be worked together much, much more efficiently. But again, I love everyone's comments and I really, really appreciate hearing from someone with your viewpoints.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? So it's on the agenda for approval. If how inconvenient would it be in your planning if, well, one, if it's not approved and or if it's postponed? If it's postponed, would you be able to start it this year? Because your plan is, in the perfect world, that it's approved and then you start for this upcoming school year?
That is correct.
Okay, so then obviously if it's not approved, then we're sticking with Alice. But if it's postponed, if our decision is postponed, then how does that affect your planning to start?
It doesn't affect, I mean, see, I've got two plans written right now.
Okay.
I've got our crisis management plan currently with Alice and all the changes and rewrites right now. And then I've already started and completed, rough draft form, of course, Alert. So if you guys say we're going to Alert, I'm prepared. If you say we're staying with Alice, I'm prepared. We just have to get some things done with the Navigate 360 company to make sure we are still allowed to utilize Alice at that moment, which basically it's a phone call tomorrow morning.
And so, Dr. Sassy, the payment, the renewal for Alice would have to occur when?
We would have time, but soon.
Yeah.
The big thing would be to notify them immediately tomorrow morning, which Tom and I can do
Sure.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I think we could, whatever direction the board, Dr. Thompson, Mr. Sargent determine they're gonna go, we can make it work from a financial perspective. We will reach out and ensure that we deal with whatever issues come and make it work.
Okay, but I guess more specifically, obviously the Alice program has a deadline for renewal, right? So when is that renewal deadline? And then obviously what happens if you pass it is the program
Sure.
drop? So my point is, if our decision is delayed, I mean, we can't delay it till November, right? So how fast would we have to make a decision to get within renewing Alice?
Alice is still good through the month of September.
Okay.
And here's what I would say, sir, is we probably, just because of the start of the school year, need to make our decision sooner than later.
Okay, sure.
So all of our staff can be ready and prepared, and
Okay.
then we can then start working with our kids one way or the other.
Okay.
And then we can handle Navigate 360 first thing tomorrow morning.
Right,
And
I think
I would say if the decision is to postpone, we probably just need to really consider and we decided to go with alert, I think we would want to wait to start alert until the next school year. I think we want to have consistency through this entire school year to avoid confusion.
Correct. Okay, all right, board, are we clear on that, on our options as far as Mr. Swan?
Pat, I'm just a little bit confused here. I mean, we're starting in 14 days. Is that the correct timeline I'm getting? First day of school? 13, is that enough time for you? I mean, really, I just don't wanna, like, I've always said, turning this district is like turning a cruise ship, you know, you gotta throw on some blinkers and things like that. So I'm just wondering.
Is it a short amount of time? Absolutely. Can we make it work? Absolutely. Would it be better if we can start our training process maybe second semester for the new school year? That would be the easiest, but we're not there. So if we decide to stay with Alice, we will run Alice for the rest of the school year. If we decide to go to alert, I will have more than enough staff between our security staff and our law enforcement to train our kids as well. But I mean, I hear you loud and clear about sticking with Alice and consistency for the remainder of the 25-26 school year. And I understand that. I get that. This kind of came in late with a lot of things that were going on with the district this summer. And I like I said, I hear you loud and clear. And we can make Alice work, and then we can start to mold our system towards alert if we want to do that at a later juncture.
Okay, I just was, you know, I know it's, you know, we've got a lot of employees, a lot of schools, a lot. I just am concerned that that's a very short timeline to be turning the ship, you know what I mean? Because it's really, yeah, I know you're saying it's not that big of a shift, but it's also.
It's big enough.
Yeah.
It's definitely big enough, sir.
So, thank you very much.
Mrs. Stephenson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Mr. Stevens, that I really appreciate that acknowledgement that it might be a little too late for this year. And I wanted to say, I think we should postpone. And I definitely do not feel like alert is a bad idea. As I said earlier, I think it's more procedurally, I just struggle with the switch this close to the start of the school year.
Okay. All right, no more comment. Any other questions first of all, are you done with your presentation? Okay, that was the big finish. Thank you.
That was it.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Sargent? All right, Mr. Sargent, thank you very much. It was
Thanks,
a
guys.
Great presentation.
Thanks, man.
All right, I have received no conflict of interest. And so at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed agreements.
I'll motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agreements. Any discussion about any items A through K? Okay, Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, I just had a question about who pays for the West River Mental Health, or how is that paid for? Do they submit to Medicaid? That's my big question.
They do. Yes, they bill Medicaid or insurance.
Okay. And then as a follow-up, are we still working with, there was I'm blanking on it right now, but there was behavior management. Yeah, does behavior management also provide counseling services on site at Rapid City Schools, or is that agreement over?
Christine, behavior management is West River Mental Health now. They changed their name.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. That's all I needed to.
All right, Mrs. Strong.
Yes, great question, Mrs. Stevenson. Currently, any charges that accrue through the district with West River Mental Health are paid out of the school-based mental health grant. And our MOU with West River Mental Health is to provide services, especially in times of tragedies and in times where our counselors on site are not certified or trained to deal with perhaps tragedies or catastrophes, that the West River mental health professionals who are certified and trained in these capacities come in and assist and work alongside our counselors. So a lot of what they offer is free of charge. However, if there is any services accrued, then those currently are paid through the school-based mental health grant. I hope that answers your question.
That does. I think it's such a good example of a partnership with the broader community. I'm really appreciative of this.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Troy Carr,
Yes.
Jamie Clapham,
Yes.
Katie Urban,
Yeah.
Donna Moore,
Yes.
Walt Swan,
Yes.
Angela Rafferty, Christine Stephenson,
Yes.
7-0.
Okay, motion carries. All right, item 12, approval of proposed consent agenda. Is there any item that a board member would like to pull? Mrs. Rafferty?
I'd like to pull J12.
Okay, well, technically 12J, so J, Juliet. Okay, any other item needs to be pulled?
Ms. Urban?
Ms. Urban?
Alpha, please.
Alpha. Any other items? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda excluding item Alpha and item Juliet. Roll call vote, please.
Did we need a motion?
Yeah, I'll motion.
I thought I made that. No.
But
Okay.
no.
Oh, I asked for it to be pulled, but no.
Yes.
All right, it's been moved and seconded?
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Troy Carr,
Yes.
Jamie Clapham,
Yes.
Katie Urban,
Yes.
Donna Moore,
Yes.
Walt Swan,
Yes.
Angela Rafferty,
Yes.
and Christine Stephenson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, let's go instead of, we'll do Alpha second. I'll entertain a motion to approve the election 25 recount board compensation.
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the election 25 recount board compensation. All right, discussion.
Okay, so according to.
Excuse me, Ms.
Oh.
Rafferty, you can pull your mic to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So according to South Dakota Codified Law 13-7-19, that the Board of Education must set the compensation for the recount board members. So I just have a question, and I'm not sure who this question is directed to, but are all three people that were there that night, are they being paid the same or are they being paid differently?
Great question, Mrs. Rafferty. I'll take that. The per diem compensation would be set at 125, and to be honest, that's not set out in law anywhere that there's a specific amount. What we did was go back to the amount that regular poll workers were paid, and essentially that those folks spent about 4 hours in that process. And so we pay them half the amount that regular poll workers were paid. Mr. Neese, who served as the district representative, is an attorney out of Spearfish. He did not tell us whether or not he would have additional charges. And so we put the second sentence in there in the situation that he did invoice us for travel or something like that to get here to Rapid. But outside of that compensation, would be the same for all those folks, Mrs. Rafferty.
Okay.
Great question.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Moore. You're muted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it would just be for travel, not for anything else? For Mr. Neese?
Yeah, correct. So obviously he would get the compensation amount. And then if he
Right.
had additional expenses for primarily travel, I would assume that he would then bill us for any of those additional items. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was just asking because I'm all about fair and I want everybody to, get the same. They all did the same job if I
Sure.
understand correctly.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm trying to multitask here. All right, so any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Troy Carr,
Yes.
Jamie Clapham,
Yes.
Katie Urban,
Yes.
Donna Moore,
Yes,
Walt Swan,
Yes.
Angela Rafferty,
Yes.
and Christine Stephenson.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. All right. Alpha presents a very interesting situation because at this time we haven't made a motion, so we can create whatever motion you all want at this time. The original normal motion would be to accept alert, but we've talked about so many different options that if we made that regular normal motion, then we'd have to make another motion to amend that motion, which doesn't make sense. So we should then discuss whatever motion you all want to put forward, up or down. All right, Mrs. Stephenson.
Thanks. I feel like what I heard from our discussion earlier is that we should just vote on it tonight, yes or no, move to alert, don't move to alert. And that any motion to delay our vote only kind of causes a little bit of confusion at the start of the school year as to what training they're going to implement when staff comes back and when students come back. So I think we should keep it as it is and just vote on adopting alert. That's my impression, but you guys could have a different impression.
Okay, anybody else? Mrs. Clapham.
I would just say the impression would be similar. I think the question, and I don't know if this makes a motion too complicated, but I think none of us are saying like in the future or next school year, this will be an issue. So it's like, I guess the question is, we say we table this now, but it's not saying to administration, like, don't bring it back. It's saying we're tabling this now and it could, but I guess if we just table it now, we don't have to add on, bring it back and we talk about it. If we just say table it, and I think it's known, we're not saying we're absolutely anti this, we're just saying we need time and information. So will we just leave it very clean as yes, no, with the door open for discussion later in the school year? I just want to make sure we don't need to add something to the motion.
No.
Okay.
No. Mrs. Urban.
I think we should just vote on it, and that doesn't mean that we are for or against it at this time. It just means we're not ready, in my view. So I think just making a motion to go ahead and approve, and then we go through and vote.
Okay, so if you have well, let me say my comments for Mr. Swan.
I'm with Katie. I think that we should just vote on it. Yes or no. And I know Mr. Sargent is probably, he'll bring this back in a later motion, in a later school board. I think that would probably be better, and he could show us his training plans and all of his preparation and ready. If we can get it before the second semester, that would be great. And that way we would have time to introduce it, but it kind of gives a heads up to our staff and our security people that we are still looking at it. But I agree, we just vote yes or no tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so for clarity, if we just make an up and down vote motion on whether to accept alert, if it doesn't pass, then by default, we would stay with Alice for this upcoming school year. And then it would be up to administration to bring it back for approval at well, actually at whatever time, because we can make a motion to approve, I mean, we can approve it for the start of
26,
25,
27.
26, 27, right? And so that would have to be up to you all. Okay, all right, any other questions before I entertain a motion? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve Alpha the alert system.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the alert system. Roll call vote, please.
Troy Carr,
No.
Jamie Clapham,
No.
Katie Urban,
No.
Donna Moore,
No.
Walt Swan,
No.
Angela Rafferty,
No.
Christine Stephenson.
No.
7-0, no.
The motion does not carry. Thank you. Not on a discussion on what? On consent agenda items, we don't have. We just had the discussion.
Well,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's what so for clarity, we pulled it.
I think
We
the word
started talking
discussion
about
was
the-
used.
Yeah, the setting up the motion.
I thought that was just, I think that was for the actual topic.
Is there a challenge?
Okay, you all have, so this particular motion failed. But if you felt that you didn't have a discussion or a discussion part, and I understand what you're saying, you can reintroduce a motion.
That's okay. I'll just, if I have anything to say, I'll say another, but I think I said most of my comments anyway, so.
Okay,
We're good.
all right. Sorry, I apologize for that. All right. Items for board information. Conducting the public's business in public. And I think the reason why that, well, not I think, I know that the reason why this is on, because when we voted, took action last time, it was revised 2023, and it's been updated, revised 2025. And so I think we just wanted to alert the board that this is a new revision, and you have copies of the updated conducting the public's business in public. Okay, any questions about that? Dr. Thompson, did you have anything to add?
No, that is correct.
Okay.
We just wanted to make sure the board had the opportunity to review the revised version and that we had that in public.
Okay, thank you very much. Certificate of recount.
President Carr.
Stephenson.
Yes,
go ahead.
I raised my hand on the open meeting. I just, I'm actually pretty appreciative that got sent out. There were two things on there that I think I was following a little more strictly, that we can have electronic communication when it comes to scheduling, and only scheduling that includes all of us, which I think is very helpful. And I wanted to be sure that other people read that in the same way. I mean, it says it pretty clearly that electronic communication for scheduling. The other thing is that in the event that we needed to have a meeting without 24-hour notice, we can do that in emergency situations, which is also super helpful to know. So I just wanted to point those two things out. They were new to me, and I think they're good for everybody to know.
Yeah, and another nuance, I was at the city council meeting this past Monday, and the assistant attorney did their presentation. And one of the things that he said is that it's not necessarily a violation if all 7 of us or a quorum are together. We have to be together and talking about school business. So if we're together and are swapping apple pie recipes, that would bumping our gums, that would be okay. It's if we are discussing school district business. So I thought that was also a unique nuance to that rule. So, well, yeah, you can have birthday parties or whatever type of parties, as long as there's no, again, business that's being discussed. Okay, at this time, we have the certificate of recount.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly, after the recount process, touched base with our legal counsel, determined that it was not necessary for the board to conduct a full canvass of the recount. However, wanted to ensure that the board had the information, just a brief overview, and be able to acknowledge, so added it as an informational item. But certainly any questions, I will do my best to answer them. But that is just essentially for the board's information.
Okay, any questions, comments about the recount? Okay, thank you very much.
Sir.
We've already had the safety update. I apologize, that should have been deleted. It was moved up earlier. Okay, any committee reports?
Community outreach has a short presentation.
Okay. Community outreach has a presentation for us at this time.
Yeah. Yep, Bobby has it.
It'll work.
Yeah.
We'll make it work.
You're first, Jamie.
Oh, I think you're right. So yes, we just wanted to sort of review what over the past year has happened with community outreach. Mrs. Urban, Ms. Stephenson, and myself are on the committee, and it was a committee that didn't function for a few years and was sort of revived. And we really worked hard to be more present in the community, to share information, to get input from community with listening sessions. And we believe had really good impact and gained really good information to bring back to the board, as well as being able to serve our community during the last school year.
So, as some of you remember, and Angela, new to you, last year we held some listening sessions. We had themes that, school safety came up right away with the situation at Stevens. Busing was a natural theme because of the route cancellations that we were going through and the hiring challenges. Recruitment and retention of staff, an ongoing concern of the board. And then we added some student listening sessions. So everybody knows what those were. We went to the AP government classes at Stevens, and we went to the AP psych classes at Central High School, and did not have a quorum at those. So we had 3 school board members and kind of divided up who went to each school. The purpose of those listening sessions was for us, we have a responsibility to represent the entire community on our board, and the listening sessions gave us a chance to listen to particular specific stakeholders and just hear what comes up. And the way that I think of the listening sessions is it provides us information that we can incorporate into all our decision making. It's not necessarily we do a listening session and we hear something and we fix it. Although I think some very concrete things did come out of the listening sessions, but more so it provides us with more information to incorporate into every decision we make. That's how I saw them. Go to the next slide, although I don't remember if I'm next. And
sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Is this me?
Nope.
Okay, go ahead.
So we just wanted to, and we also have a Google document to share information with administration on the main themes and kind of repeated themes and highlighted themes that we saw coming out of the listening sessions. So our recruitment and retention listening sessions were well attended, and some main things we heard: need for competitive starting salaries, better onboarding, things that were positive, appreciating the insurance premium at Holiday. A lot of emphasis on people burning out and struggling with student behavior. Discussed leave and making the leave policy more flexible, planning time in PD, how in a positive way being able to decrease support staff shortages positively affected our certified staff. Facilities came into that recruitment and retention discussion, and benefits that will reward longevity. And I think the main thing, as Christine said, we obviously can't wave our magic wand or assume that 20 people in a room was, that's the way we need to go. But at the same time, was really good for us to see some of the repeated things that we heard from new staff, veteran staff, support staff, like some of those same things. And we were able to trust, like looking at the leave policy, that there was a group and groups that prepared for negotiations to discuss leave policy. And actually that ended up with policy change to increase some more increased flexibility with leave. So you can see some real fruit from this. And it's a long list, so it gives us more things to work on and discuss as we for next year. The next topic was busing, a very hot topic. And particularly because, as most people know, we've had rolling bus cancellations, which can be really challenging to our families. It can affect attendance. And so thus then affecting actually academic outcomes. And some of the themes that came out with that were issues with student behavior, student safety on the bus, some issues with communications to families and families not necessarily getting communicated to in a timely manner, timing, crowding, staffing, shortage of bus drivers, and those route cancellations. And this, I feel like we really saw a lot of fruit. We had the study was very informative. And again, we've actually seen the production of eliminating how many routes how many stops? We eliminated 8 routes.
8 routes, I believe over 100 stops at this point.
Over 100 stops. So really seeing a knock on wood so that all of the routes are fully staffed with a little bit of wiggle room for substitute drivers. So another way getting feedback from our community and being able to take that to administration and say, how can we creatively solve these things? And so we really saw a lot of positive outcome from those as well.
Our school safety listening session in September was timely because, as Jamie mentioned, we did have some events at Stevens and other schools. And we were also in the process of updating our MOU between the school and our resource officers. So we did have a number of people in attendance that wanted to talk about our SRO program. And I think it was clear that the majority did support our SRO program. I think there is a feeling that, especially given some of the school safety concerns, that having them in our buildings or close to our buildings is really beneficial. There were also some folks who were concerned about SROs in our schools. They asked that there be a clear line between what an officer's job is and what a principal's task is for behavior. They would really like to see SROs stay out of behavior issues and only intervene when there's actually a law being broken. So I believe that was clarified in the MOU as well. And I think one of the most important things that we talked about was there was a real acknowledgement from people in attendance that mental health professionals in our buildings do play a part in school safety and that they have been helpful. And so we were glad to hear that. Okay, and then the student listening sessions. As Christine said, we were at all 3 high schools, and they were not shy about telling us exactly how they feel about a lot of things. So it was enlightening. We heard at Stevens they would like more AP opportunities. I think that has really expanded, so that is good news. There were some complaints about internet connectivity over at Stevens. We talked about communication. How do you want to receive communication? Most of them said they do not check their email. So don't send them an email, they won't get it. They talked about Instagram being a really great spot and even having, potentially like a student take that on. There was some talk about a lack of academic support. Like if you have a teacher and you just aren't learning from that because of their particular teaching style, is there a place where they can go to get more support? And I know at one point Central had a resource room, and I'm not sure if Stevens did, so that was something that we wanted to follow up on. Condition of our district facilities came up a lot at all three of them. Cell phone use, while you had your kids that were certainly arguing to keep their phones, there was a real acknowledgement that it's a problem. And they notice it not just at school, but in their relationships. There's conversation about graduation recognition, food and snacks. I learned that at RCAA, they routinely use like Grubhub or those other delivery, like the kids are ordering that during the day because they prefer that over school meals. So that was an interesting, I didn't know you could do that. But they did ask for more food and snacks at RCAA. And then they talked about transportation barriers at the high school level, which we are familiar with. We are one of probably not a lot of districts that don't bus at the high school level, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but they did talk about that being challenging. And then student surveys. There was a student survey last year. I don't know if there was a lot of participation. A lot of them didn't even see it. So we talked about, is there a better time when they're all engaged to make sure they're getting it at the same time and they're doing it in the class. So those were some of the highlights. And we passed those things on to our leadership so they're aware of them as well.
I think this one's me. We did as a committee come up with 3 volunteer events, and most of the board showed up to at least one of them. And I think 2 of them, we had every board member came to at least 2. These were really fun. We had 2 goals of these, and one was to just be visible as a board, talk to stakeholders, also to just kind of do something together. It was a nice little team building activity. They were fun. We talked to a lot of community members and are hoping that we can do that again, find some events. Yeah, that's the story of the volunteering. Oh, and then there's pictures.
Moving forward, we're trying to do more civic involvement. There was a couple of opportunities last year. I presented for the Lions Club, talked a lot about facilities. I've had several one-on-one meetings with community members. We've met with the PTA. And so we really want to expand that this year. And I think, as Christine mentioned earlier about Mr. Sasse's presentation, getting on the agenda of the retired school teachers, the other civics organizations, the Morning Optimists, and saying like, hey, come and hear this, or can we come and talk to you about this, I think is really important. And that was a great example of a presentation that we could do. So that's our hope this year.
So that leads into our, what's next. Though we would like to do future listening sessions, we are this year probably focusing more on those civic engagements, particularly with the idea of likely a bond coming forward and really needing to be out in the community and educate people. So not to say that listening sessions will disappear forever, but that the focus may shift a little bit this year. We know that facilities and educating the community on what a bond would look like, what a bond could do for our kids in our buildings is going to be quite a heavy lift, and that the community outreach committee would be very involved in that. Our kind of process, we're refining our template as well, saying, so we have a listening session or a civic organization, what's the feedback? How do we provide that feedback to administration and share with the rest of the board what that feedback was? So we're working on fine tuning that, and with the new app as well as the website expanding, how to communicate, what's the best way to communicate, working with Dr. Thompson and Bobby and saying, how can we communicate, and particularly communicating outside of our school population. That's the biggest challenge, is how do we reach the large number of people who don't have kids in the district, who don't teach in the district, how do we reach them? And so really working on that. So those are our focuses and plans for the coming year.
Any questions for the outreach committee? Thank you. That was a awesome report. All right, I don't see any hands. All right. Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, we're down to other. Anybody have an other? All right, Mrs. Stephenson.
Thanks. This is just something that I have wanted to bring up. You know, I got a nice email from Stevens High School that they are going to enforce the district's cell phone policy by kind of enforcing the district's cell phone policy. So our policy is that cell phones should not be used in school buildings, that students should not use cell phones in school buildings. And Stevens is taking a good step, and I think Central is as well, as saying, well, we're not going to let students use their cell phones in classrooms. And I think that's a really important step. I appreciate that. I think we're going to be looking into this a little bit further this year. That's what I've heard from you, Dr. Thompson, and I totally think that's the right idea. So that's one point. And then the other point had to do with the school calendar. And I can't tell you how many people have told me this summer, why are we starting so early? It's going to be so hot. We're going to have early releases. And I said, my response is always, you know, this is an ongoing conversation, and I will and have advocated before that we start later and go into June because of the temperature. The thing that I wanted to bring up in relation to both of these is that I think we as a board and also district administration can really start to think that the voices that we hear are the only opinions in the community. So when you talk about being more strict about cell phones, all you hear is, well, parents are just going to hate that. But, you know, when I'm out in the community and I'm talking to people about cell phones, I talk to many, many parents who would not hate that at all. But if we did something like, say, you know, if Steven sends out an email saying we're going to get more strict about cell phone use, they're not going to hear from the parents who are just like, well, that makes a lot of sense. They're only going to hear from the people who are against it. And then I think there's a real tendency to think everybody hates this. And when you talk about changing the school calendars, all I hear from school administrators is, well, we could never do that because the community would just hate it. But I talk to people all the time in the community who want that change. They want to start later. So the thing I wanted to bring up is just a caution that when we make decisions that are changes, we will hear disproportionately from people who do not like that change. And I don't know how to change that, but sometimes we just have to make decisions that are in the best interest of students and the best interest of academic performance. And I want us as a board and as district administration to remember that over the course of this school year, as we talk about hard issues, that this is, we will always hear from the people who don't like our decisions more than we hear from the people who are happy with them. And that's all.
All right. Any other? I saw a hand, but Katie, was that yours? Okay. All right, just FYI, several of us will be traveling, well, Mrs. Clapham's leaving after this meeting, to the Associated School Board of South Dakota State Conference. And it's also the State Administrators South Dakota Conference too. And so that is on Thursday and Friday of this week. And so Dr. Thompson is going, I'm going, Jamie, Angela, and Katie are going. Am I correct? And that's okay. All right. So just FYI to the community that we will be in Sioux Falls this week, and again, taking care of school business. So, all right. Any other? All right. Seeing none, we were scheduled to have an executive session. We are not going to have that due to time. Well, due to two reasons. We were going to work around the fact that we have two of our board members Zooming, but along with that, again, as we said, Mrs. Clapham needs to get on the road, and so to advocate for her having as much daylight as possible as she's on the road, we will not have executive session on tonight. Okay. At this time, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, and I will forego the formality of a roll call vote. So all in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank